Alrighties. Good evening, everyone. I hope we're all well. Before we get started tonight, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the sovereign custodians of the land on which we are meeting here tonight, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nations, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present. I'd also like to sort of acknowledge tonight, given the nature of the session, that the First Nation people's wisdom and their knowledge of language and music and communication and culture has been practiced for thousands and thousands of years and generations. And I'd like to extend my respect to all First Nation people who are here with us tonight in person and also online. And it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm very excited to be here tonight. A little bit of background about me so you know who's sitting up here yapping at you. But as I said, my name's Jamison. I am a pop singer-songwriter and a producer. I've just actually moved here to beautiful Naarm, so I'm very, very new to here. I've just moved here from Queensland. Very exciting. I bought my first jacket a couple of weeks ago. And I am loving it. Although it is cold, I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm very keen to be here chatting to you guys today. Also emceeing with our amazing panelists. And yes, I can't wait to meet you all a little bit later. So welcome to tonight's masterclass. The Push, of course, what a wonderful music foundation they are. So a youth music organisation, The Push, have been around for 30 years now, delivering programs for young people, just making sure that we're all able to collaborate and understand all the amazing opportunities that we have in the music and creative industries. So we are very, very lucky to be here tonight, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that we're all, in one room and we all have such an amazing passion about music and the creative industries. I'm very excited to jump into the session, but I do just want to, go through a couple of housekeeping things. So the bathrooms are just here. If you need to go, you're more than welcome to hop up at any point. And the session is, of course, happening here tonight, right here, but also virtually. So hello to our beautiful friends online who are watching from wherever they are. And we also do have a really great system in place. If you want to ask any questions, you can scan the QR codes that are all around, scan that and then pop the questions in. I do have my phone here. I am not ignoring you. I'm just having a look at all your beautiful questions so I can get ready and ask the panelists. So you're more than welcome to contribute as much as you would like throughout, and I can't wait to see what you all come up with. Alrighties, let's get into it. So we have quite the treat tonight. We have three amazing panelists. We have Kerry Canal from Canal & Co. We also have Lorraine McKenna from our Golden Friend and our Golden Grants, and Dale Packard from Music Victoria. So please welcome our amazing panelists. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. All right, so just to break the ice and get us all comfy, I'll just we'll go around, we'll do a little friendship circle, and if you can chat to me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how did you get into your career? Whoever would like to go first.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cannell. I am the founder of Cannell & Co. We are an artist management company. We also do business mentoring and a bunch of other things that I'll talk to you about later. I just like to acknowledge this beautiful country we're on. I'm a Torres Strait Islander woman myself, so I'm very grateful to be based on Wurundjeri country. And it's really, we're kind of on the border here, if for those of you that don't know. So I'd like to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people and the Bunurong people as well. But yeah, over to Lorraine.
Hello, I'm Lorraine McKenna. I run Our Golden Friend, which is an artist management collective and record label based here in Naarm in Melbourne. And recently I've launched a new business called Golden Grants, which is a grant consultancy and grant writing service for artists. And what was the other part of the question?
How did you get into your career?
Well, actually, to be honest, and we were just talking about this backstage, I did the Push mentoring program when I was 21 years old, and I'm now 40 years old. So, and the Push was very instrumental in the early stages of my career. So it's an incredible organization, and it definitely formed a part of my early journey in the music industry.
That's amazing.
Hi everyone, I'm Dale Packard, the General Manager of Music Victoria. I've also got a little bit of a Push backstory in that Kate Duncan, who's the CEO of the Push, the first time I met her was when I was in a band playing at a Battle of the Bands, and she was one of the volunteers kind of getting the bands on and off stage. And then now, like however many years later, we're both sharing the same office, working for music organisations that help promote music across the states. That's kind of cool. But yeah, my background before being at Music Victoria was being a musician and a tour manager and a sound engineer and organising lots of touring projects. And now at my role at Music Victoria, I do a lot of advocacy and projects that help the music sector. And I guess our main function is to represent the needs of musicians and the music industry to government and to think about strategies to help create a healthy and thriving music ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, so tonight, obviously, we're chatting all things grants, grant writing. So feel free, as I said, to ask absolutely any questions that you have throughout the evening. We understand that, grants can be a scary thing, but they are very, very important and super accessible. So, yeah, absolutely ask any questions you have. No question is a silly question. All right, let's jump in to some more. All right, so as a young person in the music industry, whether that's an artist or maybe someone who wants to run events or program things, anything like that, where can someone start to finding grants?
I can have a go. I think you don't necessarily want to go for a grant until you have a project that feels like it's getting fairly solid and fully formed, and all you need now is just a bit of money. So you don't necessarily want to apply for a grant because I've kind of got a cool idea. Kind of needs to be a bit more than an idea. It kind of needs to be something you've actually spent a bit of time. Maybe you've got some partners involved. Maybe you've got a studio. Maybe you've got a venue, or there's some kind of tangible aspect to the project that you've worked on before you get to the grant writing stage. And then when you do get to that stage, you definitely just want to have a crack. You might not be successful on your first go, but you can definitely call the funding bodies. Whenever I've applied for grants, especially early on, there's absolutely no problem with calling the grants officer, which does seem a little bit scary if you haven't done it before, because you're like, I'm going to ask all these stupid questions, and then they're going to think my application's really bad, But they're actually not the people who are assessing the grant. So you can just ask all the stupid questions to the grants officer about what should I put in my budget, and how much should I be paying this, and some things they will be able to help you with, some things they might say I can't help you with that, but you can definitely ask all those questions.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that at all?
I would just agree that timing is everything, and deciding when it is the right time to apply for a grant is really powerful. Making sure you know exactly what it is that you're wanting to get funded, because there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of different things in the music industry, but having a really clear idea of what you want to use the money for and being able to demonstrate that in a grant application. When you know that you can do that, that is the right time to apply. When you have a specific project, an album, a tour, could be anything creative, as long as you have a very clear idea of what you need the money for and how it will be implemented, that's usually a sign that you then need to apply for a grant to help you.
And I might just add to that too, like in terms of like looking for them. I've only been in the music industry for almost 6 years now. So when I first came in, for me, trying to figure out how to fund my clients' projects or my artist projects was quite overwhelming. But, a good old Google search obviously goes a long way. But also, like, don't limit yourself just to creative grants. Like, something that I found beneficial too was like looking at, okay, well, how am I showing up? What do I want to achieve? Who am I as an individual as well? Because there are grants that are accessible to young people in business, for example, or women in business, or entrepreneurs, or, so your creative goals, or your goals for your business, or your music career, it's not just an album release, or it's not just a tour. It's a project within a bigger business, So yeah, don't limit yourself to searching just for music related stuff.
I think you really touched on my next sort of question really well. Could you maybe chat us through some of the different kinds of grants that are available to people?
There is so many, and as Kerry just touched on, they span lots of different, every facet of the creative industry. You can pretty much find a grant that will support it in some ways. So I think that, there's part of the reason why I launched Golden Grants was kind of to create a channel which funneled all of the peak bodies information into one place, because there's so many different funding organisations. There's like national level, state level, local government, local council, there's philanthropic, there's all of the peak bodies across Australia have funding. So, but there's not really a centralised place to go and look for that. So, and it can be very confusing when you're just starting out and you think, where do I need to look? Because there's literally hundreds of places you could look for funding. So, yeah.
Yeah, but you also might find, you go, I've heard that Music Works is a good place to apply, and then you'll go to the Creative Victoria website and there'll be nothing there, or it closed 2 months ago. So you do kind of need to kind of stay across it and see when things are opening, and often you don't get a whole lot of notice. Often you'll see a thing saying, this grant program's opening in 7 days and closes in 9 days. So you kind of need to become a bit familiar with the different funding bodies and follow them quite closely, or just follow Golden Grants.
Yes, we have a newsletter which you can sign up to, and we send out alerts about grants nationally. So it's the part of the reason I did that was because there was no centralised organisation that was really providing that information to artists and artist managers. So yeah, it can be very confusing, but hopefully I'm making it less confusing by doing that. I don't know.
I remember when I first applied for a grant, the very first time I sort of opened it up and I went, oh my gosh, it's quite a process. There's so much to it. There's a lot of writing, maybe like some tables, all sorts of things. So what would be your most crucial piece of advice for someone who is applying for their first grant?
Most of the things that you need to do in a grant application are just the same things you really should be doing when you're putting together a business plan or business case for a project. So I wouldn't worry too much about, it's so annoying to answer all these questions. It's a really good exercise in clarifying your thoughts, whether or not you get the grant or not.
And I would kind of start with a bit of a master document so you can reuse it. And also the process of writing for me, because, I'm not a songwriter, but I am a lawyer. So I sort of have a logical way of thinking about things. But I actually take myself to the end first, because that's just the way my brain works. So I'll be like, okay, who do I need to make this project come alive? How much is it going to cost roughly? And then I build, actually then go and write out the plan of how I'm going to do it. Because, sometimes you'll write this real deadly, sick plan, and then you're like, wow, that's way too expensive. I can't afford to do that. So I like to start with the budget first. And when I'm working with a creative to help them unpack what their concept is, as a first timer, it can be a really daunting experience to articulate in words what you actually do, because a lot of your skill and your process maybe comes organically or naturally to you. So sometimes just like talking it out, like voice memo it to your phone, talk it out with a friend or a family member or colleague, and then, go, right, what are the different components I need to make it happen? Chuck a few dollar signs next to it, see how much it kind of comes to as a block figure, and then go ahead and answer all the grant questions. Because starting from the top of the form and working your way down, for me, it overwhelms me and I get stuck. I get writer's block and I stop. So, yeah, that's just a couple of little practical tips, but...
I think one of our practical tips that we chat to a lot of people about is just understanding that the peak bodies and the funding bodies want to see project viability and project progression. It's kind of one of the major things that grant assessors look at. So understanding that the key selection criteria and really referencing that when you're writing a grant, I think is super important, because each grant for all of the different funding bodies, they have very different systems. Like, we work across a lot of different grant applications for the different organisations, and none of them are streamlined or the same. So every grant you apply for will usually be different. There'll be bits of things that you can pull from previous grant applications, but yeah, it's just about really looking at that specific grant, understanding the key selection criteria, and making sure that your answers are lining up with exactly what they're looking for.
So, in addition to that, what do you think makes a grant application really strong and stand out from others?
I think really creative ideas can stand out, because if we use Creative Victoria Music Works grants as an example, a lot of people are putting in for I want to record my EP, I want to record my album, I want to go on tour, but coming up with a creative concept that is maybe not been seen before can help you stand out against other grant applications. I think looking at applying for funding outside of the box for maybe like music videos or other types of things, and having like a very clear concept can help it stand out from the rest of everything, because, everyone wants to make an album, everyone wants to record an EP. How do you make your application stand out? Have a very clear, creative, and know who you want to work with, and make sure it's laid out in a very appealing way.
I reckon also the ones that seem to stand out are where the grant assessor can see some kind of recognisable names, or it doesn't have to be like a famous artist, but you got to see like, within the application, it's like, they're using that marketing agency and they've decided to book at that studio and use that venue. Oh yeah, that I know all that. And oh look, they've got confirmation letters from those places too. So I haven't heard of this artist, but the idea sounds really good, and they're working with some great people. The budget's all solid. Like, it's that kind of stuff. I think the ones that tend to get lost a bit, where you're like, what is this? I don't know. Like, I don't really understand what the project is. It doesn't look like they've really thought this through. I don't know who these people are they're working with. And if there is someone that maybe the grant assessor doesn't know, then you can explain that. You can go, so-and-so, this producer that I'm working with actually did albums for and so then the assessor goes, oh, cool, I haven't heard this name, but I can see these other people they've worked with. So you got to kind of create some associations for the assessors to have some light bulbs go off. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I have assessed grant panels before I had this business. Obviously don't do it anymore, but I think the other thing that really stands out in a grant application is just making sure that you actually include links to your newest music or demos or any of that. Like, sometimes I've looked at grant applications and there's just there's not anywhere to really clearly listen to the music or really clearly see visuals. So making sure that in your supporting documents, you're including the things that you best represent you. So when they're actually, grant assessors are like, oh, this reads well, now I want to go and listen to it. Oh, there's nothing for me to listen to. I can't get an idea of what this project is. I can't see anything visually. Making sure you have all of those things in your grant application is super important.
And you might not have you might think, well, this is an old song, or maybe it's your newest song, but it's not relevant to the you're like, no, I'm applying to make something, or but it doesn't really matter. Like, you're kind of giving them a reference point, and they go, okay, it's going to be something like this.
Just a different angle to, like, outside of demonstrating your creative concept and your existing work, thinking about, like, the cultural aspect too. Like, a lot of the clients that I support are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders or are from culturally and linguistically diverse communities. So in terms of, like, communicating your reason why you might be doing the work might be tied to your cultural heritage, or it might be tied to your family or community in a different way. So being able to sort of speak to that in your grant application will really lift the creative elements as well, and help. Often those types of submissions you can elect to be assessed by different panels. So like the First Nations panel, come through the First Nations stream. There's different types of streams you can go through. But if you choose to go through one of those, then demonstrate why you want to be there. And that could be done through, like, a letter from your community. It could be a support letter from an elder, or it could even just be through your own words in the description of the project about why you're choosing to take that avenue. Does that make sense? I think, yeah.
Following on from that, especially Kerry, what do you think the importance of giving grants to a diverse range of people is?
It's a good question. And just, like, thinking about how you opened the session too, like, about accessibility to grants. Sometimes it can feel really, and I'm sure, Lorraine, you find this too, it can feel really daunting and not inaccessible. And I think that is a real barrier for people even trying. Like, you click on the link, you start reading the criteria, and you're like, nah, that's way above my capacity, or I can't write in the way that I need to write. But there's different ways. Like Dale suggested, you can call the grant officer, because it's really important that you have a shot. So if you're one of those people that are from a marginalised community like myself, like, I'm a lawyer and I struggle to write grants sometimes because I'll get writer's block, But if I have a yarn to someone and just talk it out, it can really help get that momentum, find the flow, hire someone like the person to my right here, hi Lorraine, or, hire a mentor. And you can call Music Victoria as well and have a yarn with them. Just anyone, if you don't have colleagues, because you deserve that choice, that chance to be invested in as well. People from marginalised communities, historically come from low socioeconomic communities, so they don't have money in their family to fund projects. And that's why it's important that we all have an equal opportunity at accessing grants. But yeah, naturally, the way the systems are structured are not built for all learning styles. So definitely look for the fine print, and if there's a phone number, call that number and ask for help. So
I think I just want to share, for example, I applied for a grant a couple of years ago, and adding to sort of what you were saying, I was very overwhelmed, and I actually got a call from the grant officer who had noticed that I had opened the application and then closed it, because I think I'd opened it and been like, oof, maybe not. And she gave me a call, and I was only like 17 at the time, just about to turn 18. And I think I had such a beautiful experience in terms of they want to help you, and really chatted me through the process. I was able to go in and meet with them and chat about my project and, prepare me for the day that I was ready to apply for a grant. I just think that's really great advice that, reach out and get that help and get that support, because it is there.
Also, funding bodies, they want to give you the money, like maybe not you specifically, but they're trying to. It's not like they're going, well, I don't know if I want to give that to you. They're actually trying to give out as much of their pool of money as they can, and obviously they need to have a process to assess, which ones they're going to get to. But yeah, I wouldn't be intimidated because they're trying to help you.
I've actually got a question that's come in from the audience. Any advice on projects that are in motion, already happening, going along swimmingly, and maybe there's no grants open at the time? What should we do in that situation? Should we hold off, or should we take the risk and do it anyway? Or
I think that this is a really great question because the way that the funding rolls out can be really disjointed into like cycles of creative people's projects, and we often have people coming to Golden Grants and being like, we're going on tour and this date, are there any grants that fall into that? And unfortunately, sometimes there just isn't. So it can be worthwhile looking at grant opportunities in advance and then planning tours and things around the timing of the grants, because rather than there's a lot of information, especially now with Music Australia, and they have these really amazing international engagement grants, which are every quarter, and they're, very well laid out for going overseas. But looking at that and figuring out which timed grant it can fit into can be very helpful, rather than being like, here's my thing, now I need a grant for it. Look at the grants that are coming up and being like, how can I make my thing fit into there? Could be a better way of looking at it sometimes.
And would that information sort of be available on the website, or would that be the best place for someone to keep track of it?
Yeah, I mean, all of the funding bodies do have, sometimes they will sit up there as Dale said, TBC or no date announced yet. So you just have to keep going back and checking. You can sign up to our newsletter because we do try to send out alerts when things do get announced and changed. But yeah, it's just important to keep checking in, because some of the peak bodies are really good at laying things out, like Music Australia, which is our newest contemporary music funding body, has been quite brilliant at looking at how having long-term options instead of just having grants announced every 6 months.
Yeah, it's almost like you want the project to be really solid but flexible in terms of timing, because you want to have, it's like you got all the ducks in a row, and then you're just waiting for this right grant, so then you can go, okay, now I'm going to schedule everything to match up with that.
We also touched on this briefly when, Lorraine, you were mentioning how it's very important to actually put in your links to your music and all that kind of thing. But is there any other way that an applicant can kind of show their unique perspective in a grant application?
I think just a lot of people think when it comes to grant applications, you have to have really creative writing, really wordy, really, I don't know, very fluffy writing. Actually, what the funding bodies, what I've learnt from my experience, is they actually want to see things just laid out very clearly and directly. Sometimes too much creative wording and too much fluff takes away from the project when you really clearly, and especially with some grant applications, you have a very short number of words to get in what you're trying to say. So it's a very fine art of making those words count and understanding. So not getting too fluffy, just saying exactly what you want to do, where you want to do it, who you want to do it with, and not trying to get too creatively fluffy with things.
And probably not spending too much time talking about how great it's going to be.
Yeah.
You want to say it's going to be fantastic, but
And another thing is, very clearly, and usually in most grant applications, they really want to see what the outcomes of the projects are going to be. What is going to happen when you do this? So very clearly outlining how this particular project that you're applying for funding for will progress your career to the next level or will take you to the next level. That's really, I think, showing outcomes and showing how, again, some specific grants are about engaging with community and engaging with different communities, and they want to see that demonstrated in the outcomes of the grant application.
That's a bit where you might need to get a bit creative, because you might know some things that will likely happen through the project, and there might be other stuff that you're like, I don't know, hasn't happened yet. How do I know what the outcomes are going to be? So you might have to get a bit creative and think about what are some cool things that could happen.
Or what are you trying to achieve? Like, what do you want to achieve? I want to record this album and I want it to be played on Triple J, whatever it is, and what you're hoping to achieve and the stepping stone you're trying to make in your career by gaining that funding is what you want to demonstrate in the application.
And that's where you can link back then to what Lorraine said earlier to the criteria. Like, you can get a few clues on what they might be looking for in the objective section of the grant, and that's where you can tie it back in. That's what I do. You just like take a few of them keywords and be like, yeah, level up or improve my economic value. I don't know. That was not a great example, but yeah.
Yeah, or as a simple example, go from playing a 150 cap room to then being able to sell out like a 500 cap room, like showing what the career progression and how this grant is going to move you from here to here is super important in a grant application.
So what if someone does get a grant? What does it look like from there? Pretty loaded question, sorry.
For me, I'm just going to jump in because I'm a lawyer. It's very important you read your contract just to make sure it reflects what you said you were going to do, and also that you've got the right bank details in there and all of those bits and bobs. But yeah, after that, really taking the time, like project planning is I like to think one of my strengths, and like planning forward. So when you get the money, you sign the contract, you've got the money. Before you even get the money, sit down and look back at what you wrote and make sure it's still relevant, because you might need to make some sort of amendments. And I'm not sure, in your experience, you might be able to add to this, because usually they're open to you making a few slight changes before you sign. So
I think it's really important with grant applications to know that they're not always 100% set in stone. So if you do get funded for something and by the time you've put in the grant application, the producer of the album has changed or where you're going to record it, that might have changed. You can go to the funding bodies and be like, okay, now I'm going to do this somewhere else with this person. And they're usually pretty flexible as long as they fall into the criteria. Like some grants, like Creative Victoria might have a stipulation that it has to happen in Victoria. So just making sure that you don't then move it out of doing it where it was meant to be done. So, but I would say I have amended many, many grants over the years, many, many things, because the nature of the music industry is it's fast-paced and things change and your career changes. So grant funding organisations have to be adaptable to that.
Amazing.
What was that question again? Because I had something. Can you ask the question?
What's the process once you get the grant?
Acquittals. Yeah. So it's also very important. So if you get funded, you have to acquit that grant. And what a grant acquittal looks like is basically a report that you have to submit after you've received the money and after the project has concluded. So it's really important to note that you have to keep evidence of where you have spent the money, how you've spent it, who was engaged, and then again in the acquittal process, they want to see the outcomes of the project and how, all of the things that you put in the application then have to be demonstrated in the acquittal of the grant.
When I first heard about acquittals, I thought they were talking about like a small marsupial, like there's like an acquittal that we had to get. It's true.
It does. It sounds like some kind of, like water creature. I love that. Sort of moving forward with that idea, do you have any advice for how to sort of handle that budgeting side of the grant? Like, how much money should I go for? And, how much money should I put aside for, marketing and that kind of thing?
You should go for however much it's going to cost and be just super accurate. So you don't go for the maximum just because you can, and you don't go for less because you feel like you'll be more likely to get it because you're asking for less. You just have to budget accurately and make sure everyone is paid fairly, and that you included as much as possible. And then whatever that final figure is your amount.
And I think it's really important when it comes to grant budgets to be as detailed as possible. I think a lot of people who are doing grants for the first time kind of just go into the budget and they go $20,000 album and then just put one line into the budget. That is absolutely not what funding bodies want to see. They want to see how much you spend on the producer, how much you're going to spend on the studio, engineers, mixing, mastering, musicians that played on the album, every
Allowances, catering.
allowances, making it as detailed as possible is the best way to go with budget. So absolutely break it all the way down. And again, ending up with a real world figure like $17,695 for an application is better than just saying $20,000. So you want it to look as real and legitimate as possible and get real quotes on things and include them as supporting documents.
And also don't forget to pay yourself too. A lot of artists I support often leave out paying themselves, and then they're running a whole project for a whole 12 months and they're not able to cover their rent, for example, you know. So yeah, working that into the budget as well. And another point is really check what's excluded. In the grant guidelines, there's always a section that says we will not fund blah, blah, blah. And just to make sure that, you know, if it's excluded, you can kind of get creative and cover costs in different sections of your budget too. So like that can get a bit complicated. It's better just to be straightforward. But yeah, sometimes you can add a little bit extra in different areas to cover a few other things. But yeah, it's really frustrating. I got a grant one time and they're like, just add 30% onto every line because we can't pay you for wages. I have a different type of company to what you guys might have. But, you know, for me, I was just like, this is so annoying. Like, you know, it can get really frustrating and confusing. So if you're a first-time grant applicant, you know, be kind to yourself and, yeah, definitely read the exclusions.
They also love seeing contributions from other sources. So that could be money that you're putting in yourself. It could be another funding body. But there's also this thing called in-kind. And in-kind means that something's being provided that there's no direct financial transaction that's happening, but that thing has value. So like an example would be we're going on a tour and we're staying at my mum's house in Sydney for 2 weeks. And so, but we're not paying her for that, but she's providing $10,000 worth of in-kind accommodation. Now, you might not say my mum, but you could say accommodation Sydney in-kind, $10,000, and then that looks like that amount is being put in on your end, and it's actually quite strong.
And I think it's also really important to remember with budgets that you don't want the amount of money that you're asking from the funding body to be the full amount that is being invested. So basically you want the grant funding bodies to be investors in your project. They don't want to be paying for everything. So you, as Dale said, including things like in-kind or money that you're putting in yourself, or if you have a record label or there's advance money showing that there's other investment in the project, because the peak bodies are really just one investor in your project. They don't want to see that they're paying for the entire thing.
We've got another question from the audience here. When applying for grants, is including a detailed timeline encouraged, or would it be better to be a bit more flexible with things?
100%. So even though the grants can be very flexible after you get them, when you're writing them, you want them to look as real and viable as possible. So real timelines, real dates, everything that you're working towards at that time, put it in the grant. And it's okay if it changes after, but don't be flexible when it comes to those things, because that will be something that the assessors will pick apart. They're like, oh, they don't really know when they want to do it. They're not really sure. And then all of a sudden it comes a question about the viability of the grant. Oh, is this actually going to happen? Is this project real? You want it to look as real as possible and include every part of documentation. So really detailed timelines are super important.
And then you can get your any people that you're collaborating with or partnering with or doing it, you know, the project together with, to add similar timelines, like, you know, when successful with this grant application, we can kick off from whenever, you know. So then it kind of, it shows that, and also you're not giving your stakeholders, I guess, false hope. Like, you can say to them, this is part of a grant application, here's a sample letter of what I kind of support I would like, and you involved in the project in this capacity, and can all tie together.
Yeah, and I think one of the rules we kind of use at Golden Grants is like, write it as if it's happening, like as if it's going to happen. That don't write hypotheticals, don't write, you know, use language like it is happening, this is how it's going to happen, when, where, who, with. Like, you don't want anyone to be able to look at a grant application and think, oh, maybe this is a bit wishy-washy. You want it to be very clear that it's happening, and this is when, and this is with who. Exactly.
And if your circumstances do change after you've received a grant, what is the best way to go about that?
You have to contact the peak body immediately. As soon as you know of the changes, as soon as like you get the grant and you're like, oh shit, I've already changed this, immediately go to them, because they want to know straight away about the changes. Don't like sit around and be nervous and worried, because as Dale said, these people want to give you the money. They want to support you. So they're ready to hear from you, and they're ready to be flexible with your changes to the project. It's just important to have it laid out clearly to get the funding, but then afterwards I find that all of the funding bodies are very flexible to help support, because they're there to support you and help you grow.
Can I just go back to the timeline thing? So it's like so important. Like, I would include a timeline even if it doesn't ask for it. Like every single grant application, no matter what it says, include a timeline.
Another question from the audience here. So once a grant is received, do you need to credit the grant supplier?
Credit them as in?
I'm guessing as in like on your work.
Yeah. This is sponsored by, made possible by, Creative
Yeah, I think
Victoria.
all of the peak bodies have different ways that they want you to do that. It's actually outlined in the contract that you sign when you accept the grant funds. Some of them will ask for logos to appear on artwork. Some of them will ask for specific writing to appear on the bottom of things. So you do usually, some of them might not ask it. As I said, each grant is very different, so you just have to understand what you're applying for and what the conditions of that grant specifically are.
Kerry, I've got a question here for you. So we've got a person in the audience who is interested in working as in artist management. Could you sort of explain a little bit more about what your role looks like and how grants look in your realm and how you got into it?
Sure. So artist management, I came into the industry to support my brother initially, and Googled what does an artist manager do, and I was like, yep, I can do that. And so I moved to Melbourne from Queensland and did it. Which was a pretty big move, and it took a couple of years, but thanks to my friends over here at Music Victoria, I was on the board there for a while and really learnt a lot about the industry and how it worked through the team there, which was really amazing. The way in which grants became part of my role as an artist manager, you know, you're always looking for ways to fund your artists' projects. For me, in the early days, like I've been doing it for 40 years, but I've only been doing it for 5-6 years. But pre-COVID, it was really different, I think, for me, because I was so new. I was just doing everything and anything I could do to get money for the artists. And that hustle kind of burnt me out a little bit at the start. So then I started slowing things down and being strategic, like Lorraine suggested, thinking forward and going, righto, what has the artist got coming up? What do they want to achieve? And at what point in time should these grants be applied for? And then I really just did a really big deep dive into what types of funding. As a business mentor, I'm always looking at different types of revenue streams and income, so different ways the artist can fund projects, not just through grants. So then being really sort of strategic about when the grant will be applied for, became a focus for me, you know, because applying before you're ready, you know, can be really deflating because you'll get knockbacks, heaps of them. And, you know, when you're a business owner too, for me, I'm used to getting knockbacks. You know, you put in heaps of quotes all the time for projects and you don't get them. But for an artist, it's just so much more personal, you know. So for me as a manager, giving advice around when the timing might be right based on the strategy they have for the next couple of years and why and what components of the larger part of their business. So if they're doing a music video, if they're doing this, all the components to their business, like really thinking about, well, where can the grant add the most value, and what will look the most unique and viable.
If they don't have someone with them that can assist them in that, what do you think is some good signs an artist is ready to jump in and start applying for some grants for the first time?
I always empower artists and anyone working in the music industry or just starting in the music industry to have a go at applying for a grant. I think knowledge is power, and learning and understanding the process. And as Kerry said, don't get disheartened. Grants are quite competitive, especially in today's, you know, economic climate of the music industry. It's very difficult for artists, so everyone is looking for alternative ways to fund things, and just having a go and doing it on your own. Usually when we have emerging artists come to Golden Grants and want grant writing services, I will usually offer a consultancy where we can do a 1-hour call with you and talk about and pass on some tips and like hear about your project, and then send you away with a list of resources of where you can do it, because I actually think it's more important for you to apply for your first grant yourself. If this is your very first grant that you're doing, I don't necessarily think it's the right time to have a grant writer involved. So I think there's a lot, usually once you've had like a few knockbacks, if you've applied like 3 or 4 times and you haven't got it, then it's a good time to go to a grant writer and say, I've applied for this quite a few times, I haven't got it. And they could then come in and go, okay, I can see how I can help. But at least you've laid the foundations by having a go yourself first.
I was just like thinking back to when I first applied for a grant and when I first started thinking about what they were. I remember getting really excited about the idea that you apply for a grant and if you're successful, you get $10,000 or something, right? Which is kind of true, but the thing I didn't quite realise was, you get $10,000 to spend specifically on the things you have said in your grant. You don't just get that money. I mean, you do. They transfer it to you, but it's to spend on the things you've mentioned in your project. So I don't know. At least I remember I had the wrong idea about that, so I thought I'd say that.
Great point. And that money goes quick too. Like once it gets in your bank account, and if you don't have other, you know, income coming from different sources, you can spend that money before you have any outcomes achieved. So another tip, have a separate bank account until you're ready to spend it.
Would you say there is a pattern, or like what's a big mistake that you might see in grant applications a fair bit?
I think people just being too soon, like too early, and not having a clear concept of what they are actually trying to apply for. I've assessed some grants where I'm like, I've read all of this and I still don't really understand what the project is or what they're trying to do. So I think it's really important to just have really clear idea of exactly what you're wanting the money for and being able to demonstrate that.
Yeah, like even saying stuff that might seem so obvious, like the kind of thing you might read through an application and you go, is this a tour? Like you honestly, sometimes you can't tell what the actual thing is, believe it or not.
And maybe people not giving enough attention to their bios. Like when I've been assessing, like I want to know about you as well. Like I want to know what your vibe is. I want to know what you've been up to, what you want to do with your career. So like, you know, having a really succinct, well-crafted bio can add a lot of value for me anyway as an assessor. Sort of places you in the music economy
And I think it's really important to assume that the people reading your grant application know absolutely nothing about you. So write it like you're introducing yourself to someone and that they have absolutely no knowledge of you. You want to give the very clearest foundations of who you are, what you're about, because a lot of the time the assessors won't know, so you want to provide as much information that paints a very clear picture of what is going on for them to be able to understand why they should be funding it.
I think it's such a valuable time too to get a support person, someone in your life to reread your work as well, get that fresh perspective to, make sure you haven't missed anything that you might think, is assumed knowledge. Absolutely. Is there a limit on how many times someone can apply to a grant?
No, I don't think so. I think you can keep going. And as I said before, it's keep trying. And I feel like the more grants you write, the better you will get at it, the better understanding you have about exactly what you would do. And it also, I think writing a grant can really help you conceptualize your project better and help you understand what it is you're actually trying to do, because you have to write it all out and demonstrate it. And sometimes before you write a grant, you might not have that clear idea, and then when you're writing a grant, you're like, oh, these are things that I need to think about in my creative practice and things that I actually want to do. So I think the experience of writing a grant can help feed into the creative side of things as well.
We are getting towards the pointy end of tonight's masterclass, guys. So if you do have any questions, this is probably one of your last chances to pop one in through the QR code. All right. Can you sort of chat us through, Lorraine, what it looks like having sort of a grant writer with you? And could you give us some insight on maybe how much that would cost?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. I think the way we work at Golden Grants is we offer a lot of different services because we work with a different range of clients. Our entry-level service is a grant project consultancy call, which I just talked about before, where you can hop on a call with us for an hour and we will hear absolutely everything about your project, start to finish, and hear exactly what you're looking for funding for. And then we talk through all the funding that is available and when it's available. And then following that call, we give you a document which looks at the grant funding landscape from a very holistic way, national level funding, state level funding, local government funding, philanthropic funding. We also look at residencies, internships, fellowships, and other creative avenues to find funding. We also offer a service which is if you're writing a grant and you feel stuck or you just want somebody to have a look over it, give you some advice on it, we can do a 1-hour call and have a look through your grant application and help with ideas and concepts and ways to make it the best version of its grant application. Then we obviously have our full-scale grant writing service where you come to us and basically you provide us with your bio, all of your information and what you're trying to achieve, and we will then go away and start to finish write the grant for you. The way we work is very collaboratively with our clients, so we listen to everything that they have to say and then we will send several drafts back and forth to make sure it fits exactly what they want it to be. And we also have an acquittal service, so if you have got a grant and you don't want to acquit it, we can also do acquittals as well.
What would you say the major benefit would be to going with a grant writer?
I feel like you need to have your project at a certain level. As I said, I always encourage emerging artists and emerging people in the music industry to have a go at writing them first. But if you really feel like you have all your ducks in a row and the project is there and it's really viable and you just want someone to really make it neat and someone who has experience with grant writing, that's probably the right time to get a grant writer when you have had a few goes yourself. I would always empower everyone to have a go at writing a grant first before engaging a grant writer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Dale, could you give us a little bit of insight on sort of the benefits that Music Victoria has with their grant system as well?
Yeah. So look, Music Victoria generally don't give out grants. Being we're a non-government organisation, there's a bit of an exception happening at the moment where we are delivering 2 grant rounds, one for venues to pay artist fees and another one for festivals to kind of underwrite some of their costs. But we do provide various services for people who might be wanting to apply for grants. So we also have a grants and funding page on our website, as well as a jobs and opportunities page. So we do a pretty good job of updating both of those. So I guess, any kind of grants, jobs, opportunities in the music industry, please bookmark those pages on your browser of choice, and have a look, because we update them like every week or so. We also occasionally run grant consultancy sessions, particularly in the lead up to key rounds. So, for instance, if Creative Victoria are doing a big musics round, we might offer a grant consultancy service for people wanting to apply, and similar for Music Australia. So in order to stay across all that stuff, I'd strongly encourage everyone to become a Music Victoria member. So to become a member, you can just go to our website and follow your nose to the membership section, and the entry level tier is free, so you don't have to pay anything. And so if you sign up there, you'll be across all the different comms and opportunities that Music Victoria have to offer. And I feel like it's a really great way to stay across what's happening in the Victorian music industry, particularly in regards to projects and programs and opportunities.
All right, so our final question has just come in right at last minute from the audience, and it's such a cracker. Are regional events or artists or projects, etc., in areas with limited industry infrastructure at an advantage or a disadvantage when it comes to applying for grants?
There are a lot of regional grants. I would say there's so much more regional funding, especially if you're outside of the metropolitan areas. There's far more funding for regional touring, and there's a specific stream for regional touring. So I would say you just have to make sure you're looking at the right places. There's actually funding bodies which are just for regional areas. I would say it's definitely an advantage, and it should be, because for a long time it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of focus put on regional, but I would say currently there is.
Regional Arts Victoria is a very good organisation to speak to. There's quick response grants that happen in the regions, which you don't get so much in Metro. We can apply for up to $5,000 for something that's happening in just like a few weeks' time. That's really cool. I wish we had that in Melbourne.
And some of those some of those Aboriginal owned and led arts organisations too can be a good resource in the regions. Like I think it's Glowak out at on Gunai Kurnai. They'd have a lot of insight into grants, or they might be even interested in partnering as a venue too. So,
and I think local councils out in the regional areas also have quite a lot of funding as well. So looking at your specific regional local council, there's funding there as well.
I've spoken to a few arts and culture officers at local council where they go, "Oh yeah, we've got a grants program, but no one really applies." It's obviously depends on your council, but always make sure you're staying across that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, team. It's been absolutely amazing. We're so lucky to hear, it's such a big process, grants, but I think today we've really been able to cover some of the really nitty gritty, and I'm sure these guys are all going to be available for you guys to chat to later as well if you would like. Thank you so much. Round of applause. All right, so this concludes the this section of this evening. We do have tons and tons of delicious food out here. We've got gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, absolutely everything. So you're more than welcome to grab a snack. Please stick around, though. We do have Mathilde, who will be performing for us just after the snacks as well. So collaborate, meet each other, make some friends, and get eating. Thank you so much.
I kicked it, so I was like...
Wonderful friends around the corner who are munching away. Feel free to come and have a little listen. We have the beautiful Mathilde here tonight, everyone, who will be performing for about 15 minutes or so. So come on in. We're very excited. And welcome, Mathilde.
Stop it. That's the end. That's our performance, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know. What can I say? It's really symbolic. Hi, my name is Mathilde, and I'm a Nam artist. I'm excited to be singing literally 3 songs for you guys. It's really cool. All the songs I'm actually singing are off my new album, which was funded by a Creative Victoria grant. So it's very fitting. Yeah, we love. Kind of just goes to show that you really just need to go for it no matter what kind of experience you have, because you never know what's going to happen. This is a song I wrote a little while ago about like getting into a new relationship and like not really knowing how to love after being with someone that really sucked, and then realizing that you kind of have to like let yourself get hurt to love in a way. Anyway, this is called Break. It's not up to me to ask where you've been. Oh, the past is past, but I won't let you in. Oh, it's terrifying. What if I'm crying? Don't let me go. Oh, you're occupying my state of mind. I'd rather be a fool for you than hurt you too. Oh, not my fault I loved you more. Change the lock or close the door on me. Bring me to my knees. I'd rather break than let you bleed. You can be the one to leave and break me, and break me. Bring me to my knees. Won't you break me, and break me, and break me. Bring me to my knees. Won't you break me down? I'm in my head, I feel you watching me. Oh, the past is past, so I let it be. Oh, it's terrifying. What if I'm crying? Don't let me go. Oh, you're occupying my state of mind. I'd rather be a fool for you than hurt you too. Oh, no, thought on me, bring me to my knees. I'd rather break than let you bleed. You can be the one to leave and break me, and break me. Bring me to my knees. Won't you break me, and break me, and break me. Bring me to my knees. Won't you break me down.
So usually my guitarist plays like a really sexy solo here, but I play acoustic guitar, and I'm not going to embarrass myself, so I'm not going to play it, but I will sing it to you, and so I apologize for that. Get ready, I'm not going to do it well, and I really mean that. Yep, that's right. He's got a fuzz pedal on. It's great.
I'd rather be a fool for you than hurt you too. Oh, Mama thought I loved you more. Change the lock of clothes they thought on me. Bring me to my knees. I'd rather break than let you bleed. You can be the one to leave.
Thanks. I hope you all enjoyed my very in-tune guitar solo. This is a song I wrote a little while ago, which means a lot to me. 2 years ago, someone really special, my Uncle Steve, passed away from prostate cancer. So if you're a guy, go get checked, please. But before Steve passed away, he gave me a pair of Red Doc Martens that he had worn his entire life, and he took them traveling with him and to all his music festivals, and he gave them to me so that I could kind of like continue that tradition on for our family. And I wore them for my first ever show, and I wear them to every festival I go to, and I wrote this song for him, and also as a way to kind of like process what it meant to lose someone that was utter sunshine. So this is called Red Doc Martens.
All alone, stuck in that space, and I swear to God, I saw your face. I just stood there a while. It's survival. And I walked down the street wearing your shoes, and I saw a man. Guess I thought he was you. I called out your name. He just walked away. And it's crazy. I'm not ever letting go. No, I'm stuck in denial. I'll hide like a child, and I'm breaking 7 stages. Stay away, I'm not giving you up. I won't let you go away again. Now I can't feel a thing. Buried you deep in your voice on the phone, and forget how to speak. It's your fault. What hurts is it's not. So I walk down the street wearing your shoes. Morning takes what it wants. Let it scar, never bruise, so you would stay. Why'd you go away? And it's crazy. I'm not ever letting go. No, I'm stuck in denial. 7 stages take your place. What a beautiful day to remember your name again. Always fun bringing the mood down on a Thursday night. This is my last song, and it comes out in a month. Oh my lord, I don't know what to do. It's called Haunt You When I'm Gone, and it basically stems... I'm going to give you guys the tea, because I actually don't know a lot of you, and so I can bitch to you. So, basically, I dated this guy when I was 17. He was 21. I still had to ask the teacher to pee in the classroom, and he had his full license. So, like, make that make sense, babe. Anyway, they sucked. I moved on. Life was cool. They did a lot of really shitty things, and then they are like I still see them every now and then through like people I know. And I was at this like tunnel rave of all places, and I was super drunk. And he found me at this tunnel rave, and he was like, "Oh my god, hey, like, can I talk to you for a second?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm drunk enough. Like, sure, hi." And he was like, "I just want you to know that I've never done anything that horrible to anybody else. And I just want you to know, like, you're the only person I've ever done that to. So I'm sorry." And, like, it really haunts me. And I talk about it with my therapist all the time. And I was like, thanks so much. I'm glad your therapist knows who I am. Mine knows who you are. But I'm actually really good now. So, like, I hope I still haunt you, babe, because, like, you suck. Think of me always, but I'm not thinking of you. Anyway, so I wrote this song about him. He thought I wrote another song about him a while ago, which is like this beautiful love ballad. It's actually about my favorite book, They Both Die in the End. It was really embarrassing when he thought that one was about him. But this one is. So I hope you like it. Too hurt to love, how cliche kept me warm and burned me. Your affection rolled in big waves, swept me up and drowned me. Yeah. Too young, too soon, you mourn to hide the truth, but I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. You dug our grave, then placed the flowers center stage. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. No remorse for who you were then. Now I'm gone, you're sorry. But you don't get to mourn my absence when your hands look dirty. Oh, too young, too soon, you mourn to hide the truth, but I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. You dug our grave and placed the flowers center stage. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. So basically, this is everything I wish I could say to him, but I didn't because I was too drunk. And instead I said, "That's fine, babe, I forgive you." So when you close your eyes to sleep at night, you're gonna wish you never said goodbye. You made me bare my soul, and oh, little ones, you stole the oxygen out from my lungs. So when you think of me, that girl you knew, I hope you know I'm better without you. And when you see me walking down the street, I won't remember you, but you'll remember me, and I'll be fine. I'm gonna haunt you till you die. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. Oh, I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. I'm gonna haunt you when I'm gone. Oh,
Thank you. Thanks. I'm Matilda Ann, and if you want to listen to any of it, you can go check out Who Brought Matilda on Instagram, because I don't know who the